On the last time on Agri History. Hello and welcome to Agri History. And now, more of the same. Hello and welcome to Agri History. And today we'll talk about the Ribes genus. And we're covering the following types of currant: red currant, blackcurrant, white currant, and gooseberry. First you'll cover blackcurrant and its domestication history. The process of domestication happened within the last 400 years. The first record of blackcurrant were found in the UK. In the literature of 17th century herbalists such as Gerard and Parkinson. This reflects the medical properties of this plant, discussed during that time period. By 1826, 5 cultivars of blackcurrant were described by the Royal Horticultural Society of the UK. This number had increased to 26 by the year 1920. This was mainly due to the efforts of private individuals in the nursery and gardening trade. From that point onward, however, most of the cultivars were bred in active breeding programs, many of which were state-funded. The most important cultivar from the UK from the late 19th century until the 1980s was Baldwin. Baldwin is a seedling of unknown origin. It is known for its high flavor quality, and for this reason, many cultivars of blackcurrant were derived from Baldwin. Later on, there was a move towards incorporating Nordic germplasm of blackcurrant to improve the frost tolerance and increase the amount of late-flowering cultivars. This was done using crossbreeding techniques with the Siberian subspecies of blackcurrant alongside 2 other species, Ribes tachiflorum and Ribes dicutia. This breeding program happened in Russia. In the 1930s, a disease called pine blister rust made an appearance. Using Ribes oceresus, breeders were able to breed varieties of blackcurrant that had resistance to this disease. Now let's talk about red and white currants. First reports and descriptions of red currants come from 15th century Germany. These first reports are sought to refer to the species Ribes savatum, because a second species of red currant, Ribes patrium, was not introduced until the early 17th century, and the Aramean red currant species, Ribes rubrum, was introduced even later. Cultivars of red currant derived from Ribes rubrum were introduced in the early 19th century, and by the 1920s, more than 30 cultivars of red currant were identified in the UK. Further development of different varieties of red currant was limited in comparison to blackcurrant. In the 20th century, Laxton's No. 1 was introduced to the UK, and from the US, Red Lake and Face Prolific were produced. These 3 cultivars are still grown to this day. Further breeding has been done in Holland, where many different cultivars with late flowering and fruiting traits were bred. The cultivars had Ribes multiflorum in its parentage, which is the source of the aforementioned traits. White currants are a group of red currants, specifically of Ribes rubrum, that have been bred to have white berries. This cultivar group was described in the mid-17th century, but new breeding programs and breeding improvement has been erratic, coming up and down in little jumps. The most widespread cultivars of white currant are White Versailles, a French seedling of unknown origin from the late 19th century, and the more recent cultivar Sativa, from Holland. Now on to gooseberry. The first records of gooseberry we have is from the Middle Ages, where they are mentioned as plants supplied to Edward I from France. By 1778, over 20 cultivars were described. From that time onward, large numbers of cultivars were developed by gooseberry clubs in the Midlands and north of England. These organizations produced over 1,000 cultivars by 1925. While a few of these cultivars survive today, some of the old cultivars are still popular, such as Wyndham's Industry and Careless. Gooseberry production and breeding declined when the disease known as Gooseberry Mildew arrived in the UK. In the USA, cultivar development was based on using Ribes hortellum as a base parent. Later on, further crossbreeding with native species of Ribes in the United States were used to produce cultivars such as Spine-Free and Captivator. These varieties had less spines than the normal European varieties. Most of these American cultivars seem to have smaller berries than the European cultivars. This has led to more crossbreeding with European varieties of gooseberry. Now on to current Ribes breeding projects. At present, there's 15 active Ribes breeding programs that are mostly publicly funded worldwide. Most of these programs are located in Eastern Europe and Russia, producing cultivars for local production and market conditions, focused on national and regional requirements. In Scotland, spring frost and insect and disease resistance are the main traits being bred for. This is being accomplished using high-quality European varieties and Scandinavian late-flowering varieties. And that concludes the topic of Ribes. Next we'll talk about blueberries. Hope to see you then.